Oh, it is Saturday, the 29th of August, 2026. That means it's 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. As always, every Saturday and Sunday, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we go live. And Saturdays are educational, where I do real-time examples. Lately, I've been doing a lot of these analysis videos to show you how pros work, the invisible stuff, and of course, taking on submissions from my viewers themselves. And that is what we're gonna do today. Yes. And if you didn't know, we have a poll today as well. The poll was submitted by the one and only Emma Bennett, who is an author who just announced that she has a fantastic deal for publishing. She's got a couple books in the works and a pretty cover. She got a pretty pink cover. Pretty pink cover. Also, we are going to get into, I'm just waiting for a couple people to jump in, and then we will start talking about today's specific lesson. Am I right? Am I right? Everybody knows you can't go wrong with pantyhose. All right. Today's poll, we will go over it at the end of the hour, is what's something you used to worry about when you first started writing? This was a submission from the one and only, the wonderful Emma Bennett, as I said. And we have the book being dreadful, meaning, it's just, no one's going to like it. Bad reviews, you're just getting those. Look, honestly, I would say 1 and 2 are bad reviews, but I have seen high 4s and 5s with bad reviews. Yeah, that's right. I've seen a 5-star review where they said, I don't not necessarily like this book or reading these kinds of books because I'm not a fan of romance. But the writing was interesting. Anyway, not being able to write a second book, ooh, that is a big fear. That is a big, because how many books do you have in you? Do you only have the one book? And then it's like, do I have another one? So that's, I like that. And of course, not making enough sales to live on. Also, if you didn't know, please bloop that beard and bloop that like button, because the algorithm loves it and keeps the lights on, as they say. We got to keep the lights on. All right. Let's do it. Okay, so we had a submission. Monster After the Fall. This is only 981 words. That's not bad. Let's say hi to everyone before we jump into it. Hey, what's up, Cindy? Always a pleasure. Ciao, Bella, mi amica. Oh, nothing much. How are you? The beard says. What we got here? Yes, Emma, thanks for the poll. Hard questions as always. What's up, Chris? Welcome to the show. Stop interfering. That's always my bad. I apologize for that. We got hellos. I'm good, thanks, Cindy. How are you? Hi. Working on Reno's, my new writing area, is going to be wonderful. Dark academia vibe. Ooh, I like it. Let's give you a little applause for the effort and the adventure. I'm talking about. All right. Oh, I post before and after photos on the website. If Thomas says it's yeah, please do. Of course, always. Right now, learning how to pull heating ductwork. But wow, you're going in it. I'm liking it. I'm loving it. Hey, Zach, welcome back. How's it going? Thanks for joining us again. Oh yeah, the one and only Flowers. And I have to cut out a new vent hole. Yeah, the ductwork is never really fun. Be careful. Wear gloves, please. I've seen people cut themselves quite badly. Arrow, what is up, Sean? Hey, everyone. And, of course, Afghani. Always a pleasure. Hey! Afternoon to you. Thanks for joining again. We're going to get into the Shonadron. By the way, speaking of Trons, Peter Cullen. Actually, everyone has died this month and this year. I just want to put that out there. But Optimus Prime, the voice of Optimus Prime, now. Transform and roll out. I will miss that, man. How are you? Oh, just the epilogue to go. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. If anyone doesn't know, Flowers is editing her book, and she is kicking butt. That's what I'm talking about. What's up, awesome? I'm good. How are you, Cindy? All right, let's get into it. I know Tim Curry. What is light without dark? Still, I love that movie. I don't care what people said, but mostly I like the darkness. All right, let's get into it. All right, so today I'm gonna change it up a little bit. What are we doing today? I'm just about to get to it, Afghani. I know Tim Curry passing is. He was in Home Alone 2, though. That was nice. Yes. I'm a big fan of the Currys. How to wow my daughter and said what is happening in Hollywood. Oh, him to wow my daughter and said what is happening. I had to cut an epilogue. Apparently, it was far too depressing to steal it. Yes. Well, it depends. You know, it might be what you needed for the story. But if it is a romance, yeah, you don't want to take off. You don't want to take the happily ever after. All right. So today, what we are doing is we're gonna get into it. We're gonna read 981 words. uh and we're gonna change it up. Normally what I do is I will go through and do the phases. I'm gonna touch on some of the phases today, but the first thing, because this is such a short piece, a short scene, I'm actually gonna read it and sort of give real-time thoughts on it. And then depending on how much time we have, I'll go through some of the phases, as they say. But I do have thoughts on this. Of course, of course, of course. So let's get into it. Shining, shimmering under the thick needle branches of pine. It's a romantasy, but leans heavily into the Yeah, yeah. You cannot take away a happily ever after in any form of romance. It's just the rules. Tim Curry passed away. Looks he had a very serious. Yeah, he wasn't last year. He had it a while ago. Actually, it was really bad. I remember watching him. I loved him. He was so quirky. Yeah, and plus he had such a great voice. One of the greats. All right, let's do it. Let's get into it. Da 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 da. Shimmering, shimming. Shimming. Is it shimming or shimmering? Is it supposed to be shimming? Shimming? Right? The act of shaking. Yeah, shimmying. 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 All right, let's do it. Let's do it. All right. Shimmying under the thick needle branches of the pine trees. Each low branch scraped at my skin. I made my way to the fence. All right. This is this we would do that. The reason is because this is a break in a logical narrative movement, and this focus or intent is on the trees and the branches, and then this focus intent is now on a fence, which has nothing to do with this. Therefore, the logical narrative movement, it doesn't connect these two passages or that sentence. So, shimmying under the thick needle branches of the pine trees, each low branch scraped at my skin. I made my way to the fence, a great iron barrier built to keep us safe, but only made me feel trapped. Don't you love me? All right. I would actually. I would do this because right now a great iron barrier was built to keep us safe is kind of the grammar that would have to be there. Again, I don't normally do line edits when I do a developmental edit, but just for the fun of it today. A great iron barrier. So this is, I made my way to the fence, and this is sort of like an aside to that idea. A great iron barrier built to keep us safe, but one that only made me feel trapped. I would also, by the way, in this moment, I would ask who is the narrator talking to. But let me be clear, whenever I say that, I'm not saying you shouldn't do that. It is a choice. If you're writing in first person, remember, you can absolutely have the narrator be like, well, I'm here again. It's going to be difficult, and I know. And then you could just have them talk. There's nothing wrong with that. Just keep that in mind. I'm just saying it because it does feel too distant from me. But again, if that's the style, then as long as it maintains the style, it's fine. Hey, Kelma, as at least you finish your book. Yeah, I went back to plotting again. Gotta always do it. Why is everyone doing first person? I don't know. I don't know. It is what it is, right? It is what it is. If you don't like first person, I look. To be fair, the Sundays I'm only writing in first person because I normally write in third person, limited, and I decided to challenge myself. But I'm with you, Afghani. I prefer third person limited, or cinematic third person. But mine isn't first person, but I write in it first, then change the third because I can get deeper into the interesting approach. I like that. I like that. I like writing first person because I can be more internal, but it really depends. This is the thing, though. I agree with you. Right now, this isn't really sitting in too deeply in the internal, and I think if you're going to use first person, you should take advantage of the first person distance. I think that would definitely elevate this piece right off the bat. It makes a huge difference because you do have that distance from the immersion. Yeah, Abby. If you have any questions about your own writing or what I'm doing today, feel free to ask questions. Because I talk to myself like that. I mean, I do too. I sit there and I go, oh, the great iron barrier built to keep us safe. But one, they don't, because this is exposition, you know. If we were doing the phases, that'd be exposition. I think a lot of people are doing first, at least seems so. Do you answer yourself too? Of course. I have finished like 10 or 11, but most of them are various stages of editing. I'm still going to give you a flow for it. All right, let's continue. I live on my own. Wow, I can only hope. Oh, all right, let's do it. Where were we? All right. Each low branch scraped at my skin. I made my way to the fence, a great iron barrier built to keep us safe, but one that only made me feel trapped. Trapped today. All right. All right. I think. Yeah. All right. It was there with my face pressing against the bars that I saw it. I saw it. It was there. I do have to. It was there with my face. It was there with my face pressing against the bars that I saw. These are a lot of filter words. In the forest beyond was a great moving tree. Its trunk whipped around and bent until large wooden eyes stared back at me. Gasping, I scurried back to the safety of the little village. All right. A lot of this feels very staccato, very, again, it's like statements. I made my way to the fence, a great iron barrier built to keep us safe, but only one that made me feel trapped. It was there with my face pressed against the bars that I saw it. In the forest beyond was a great moving tree. Its trunk. I kind of like this a little bit though. Its trunk whipped around and bent until large wooden eyes stared back at me. That's an interesting visual. We got. Are any published? Would love to read it. Hell yeah. I just watched your interview with Dawn. I really enjoyed it. Good tips for making sure scenes have an ebb and flow of positive and negative conflict. Ghost Productions, thank you so much for saying that. I really appreciate it. I did have a good time interviewing Dawn. Always a pleasure to have her. That's her second time on. I tell people on Sasa all the time, make the first paragraph personal. Something the MC feels about the world or themselves, a reason to connect with them. There's nothing wrong with that as a choice, my friend. Just my worst one from like 5 years ago. I think the prose is fine, but I self-publish on Amazon. All right. So this is a pretty big leap. Gasping, I scurried back to the safety of the little village. Zara, my mother shouted. Hurry or we won't get home. This is one of my least favorite ways to introduce a name. I don't think there's anything wrong with it if it's a choice, but I personally don't like doing it. It's where somebody just says the character's name, especially in first person, so we know the person's name. My mother shouted, Hurry, or we won't get home before dark. All right, so scurried back to the safety of the little village. Are they at the village or are they heading to the village? That would be something. This would be a note over here. Are they heading to or actually getting to the village? Scurried back. That would be like a question I would ask. All right. Zaria. I like it. Do we know what genre this is? I don't know what specific genre this is, but so far it just feels like coming of age. Misty Ped. The prose is fine, but the bones are great for the story. If I had slowed down and edited, I would have found more errors. All right, let's do it. I ran up to her and lifted one of the wooden buckets, now filled with water. This is very passive. Where did the bucket come from? Looks like fantasy, a tree with eyes, perhaps. I don't think the tree actually has eyes. I think it's the visual. I think that because they're definitely a child. I think they're seeing the trees swaying and moving from the winds, and it just, you know how like we see things and stuff. I think that's what's actually happening. Though, to be fair, Cindy, it might actually be fantasy, but there's just not enough context for that yet. Gripping the end of one of my curls, she pulled it straight and plucked the needle out. Gone on one of your adventures again, have you? She released the strand and it sprung back into place. Oh. Is it too late to submit a short review chapter? No, send away, send away. If you have my direct email, feel free to send it that way. If you don't, go to makearightleft.here.com. makearightleft.here.com. And go to contact and reach out to me, and then just say you want to submit something for the Saturdays, and then I'll respond, and then I'll allow you to send something to me without going to spam. Do you think it's a good idea to set up objects early in the scene before having the scene culminate in the use of the object, like hanging a sword on the wall for a couple of chapters? Well, I think Chekhov's gun is a fantastic tool for writing, for sure. But I'm a fan of writing a zero first draft and getting down certain ideas or certain objects or certain moments. And then on my second draft, I like to start adding that in earlier. So again, if a sword of purpose is there, I would absolutely go, all right, I need to at least reference this sword before it becomes important, whether it's we see it or have not. There's a couple of things in Death of a King that I do that with quite often. I do agree. Foreshadowing is fantastic. Chekhov's gun is fantastic. See, now I thought it was the tree moving. Otherwise, why the wall to keep them safe? Not sure. Has possibilities. Yeah, maybe. There could be monsters too. I believe there's something going on over there. Anyway, no, I grunted. She tilted her head and raised it. All right. A couple things. No, I grunted is a dialogue tag, not an action beat, so it gets a comma. This is her behavior. She tilted her head and raised her eyebrow. Yes, I admitted. This is now another beat, or a movement, and we would do a comma because I admitted. Could have just said yes. I said, tucking my chin down. Her sparkling eyes smiled down on me as she hoisted the two remaining buckets up. So tell me, did you see any monsters? Yes, any monsters? Her sparkling eyes smiled down at me as she hoisted the two remaining buckets up. I would do this. This is the character noticing something about the mother, and then this is the mother responding. So did you see any monsters out there this time? The other thing that I would start really paying attention to is how old is this character? how old is this character? And let that influence the way the narrative is moving and describing things. So not to go too deep into adult vocabulary. All right. Vocabulary. Since it's first person, we are limited to whatever the character sort of the way they see the world. I guess that's why prophecies are so prominent in fantasies. They set up, yeah, they do set up, or misfire, fantastic. Yeah, one of my favorite things is the subversion of an idea. Like I like the chosen one, but then it's not really the chosen one. That's my. Hey, Aaron, what's up? Working on my debut novel. Let's give you a big applause for that. I always love hearing that. It's getting juicier than ever. Can't wait to get a sip of that. Can't wait to read it. Still a few chapters ago, got to work out the conclusion. I'm so happy. Then work on my poetry books too. I'm super happy for you as well, my friend. Way to go, Aaron. I smiled down at me, but that is me thing. Yeah, there is this thing going around in the community where people say don't let eyes do things. Like eyes, he gave him his eyes. He turned it. I'm okay with it if the narrative is lyrical to start, but if the narrative is not lyrical, like I don't really consider this lyrical. So there might be an argument to be like, but also this does have like a weird sense to it. Her sparkling eyes smiled down at me. Hey, what's up, Em? I'm working on my historical fiction though. Hey, it's gonna be pretty bumpy right now. I want to put out a book of odes. Oh, interesting. That's interesting. One of my 2 books that I think are near publishing ready subverts the big fantasy battle at the end. Oh, that makes me happy. I like that. I always like that. I'm fine with eyes doing things, but it makes it seem like the eyes are smiling. I agree with that. Yeah, the sparkling eyes smile down. Yeah, that I agree with. If my sales, when I get them, I'm okay if buys a burger a month. I mean, that's definitely fair. That's definitely fair. If I could get a burger a month with my... Okay. Okay, to answer questions, this is the garbage draft. It is fantasy. She is 10 at this point. She has a big imagination, so even if she sees a monster, it's easy for her mother to believe it's imagined. Fantastic, fantastic. Well, all right. Normally these are anonymous, but I'm so glad that J. Sam, or Chris in this case, pointed that out. Fantastic to know. Some things that I would definitely keep in mind, though, is even though she has a big imagination, this might be a little too much for her as a character. You know what I'm saying? Her eyes lit up. Her eyes squinted. Again, that's a personal thing, and some people don't even think twice about it. Yeah, that's a thing. When you're writing, remember all choices help add to your voice as an author. All right. Oh, what was it this time? All right, let me read the dialogue. Urban fantasy? So tell me, did you see any monsters this time? Yes. Oh, what was it this time? A buzzing bee or a big-eyed fly? Nope, it was bigger. She gasped with excitement. A frizzy cat or a scroungy dog? Bigger. I sang, bigger! She stopped and looked at me, her smile fading. Zaria, did you see a horse beyond the fence? No, it was a tree. She let out a big breath. Oh, because this is an action beat. Her cheeks rounded with her smile once more. I would probably get rid of this. What is it? Control, alternate shift S. I don't know. I would probably get rid of that. All right. Well, a tree in the forest. Who knew? I want to get poetry book first, novel about third outing. I'm not even a novelist, but I'll try to do my best. Hey, if you're writing books, makes you a novelist, my friend. All right, a couple things. I'm not really a fan of the dialogue. I know it's a first run, but a lot of the dialogue feels more like words are being said and not necessarily characters are having a conversation. There's a little bit of fun here. Um, this feels like a piece that's just maybe we're introducing the fact that horses are monsters or scary or something like that, but it's sort of like a lost moment, mostly because she's 10, I'm assuming, as you said. Um, but the big issue here is that this is what we call prompt conversations. So tell me, did you see any monsters this time? This is just the characters aren't having what we would call and this is just how do we get exposition into that's the way I'm seeing it. I would suggest to sort of maybe lean into it. I don't know. This is probably narratively important. We have the barrier, we have the monsters that exist beyond the barrier. The horse is probably something of note. I probably would have leaned into that a little bit more and not just ran past it. It's flown past. She stopped and looked at me, her smile fading. Zaria, did you see a horse beyond the fence? No, it was a tree. She let over. Oh, her cheeks rounded with her smile. Well, a tree in the forest. Who knew? And it just goes back to sort of like comfortableness. The problem right now is we are, including my notes, we're about 300 words in, which is about a page. And I would say we are adding little bits of information that might be prevalent, which is good, right? We have the fence, we have the potential for monsters or the idea of monsters, the character is introduced, and then the mother. My only argument right now, without reading more of it, is that I think the dialogue is just coming out as exposition, and maybe I would give them a reason to talk about the monsters. Not, did you see any monsters? Like I would make something that happened in the beginning be a catalyst. That would be a big note. That would be a big note. I've yet to meet someone with sparkling eyes. You'd be surprised. Could have said, "What did you see?" That might allow the girl to no, that's still a prompt though. That's still, what did you see? Right? So if 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 Zaria, I guess it's Maria, but Zaria. If Zaria ran up, mommy, I saw a big scary tree. Now the 10-year-old is prompting through character. They're excited. They got scared. Remember, they scurried off. Gasp. Where is it? Gasped. Gasping. I scurried back to safety, the safety of my little village. And then, Zara, my mom shouted, hurry, we're going to be late before it's dark. Mommy, I saw a big scary, now it has the call and response of the information we got. But in reality, it's like, hey, what's up? She touches her curls, meaning like the gasp and fear isn't really being, it's not being talked about. It vanished. Runs. So either it did scare the character or it didn't scare the character, but it is resolved within one beat. So it's gasping. I scurried back to the safety of the little village. We also don't know if she made it back to the village. If she did, then it would be this. There would be a soft chapter break like that, because you'd have to indicate that time has passed. So that is my argument for that. But boop, boop. I think the emotional truth has been forgotten. Like it was abandoned. And now she's like, oh, your curly hair. And did you go on an adventure? No, I grunted. And then she's just like, yes. And then, her sparkling eyes magically look at her. And then, so tell me, did you see any, right? Like, so we could have allowed the emotional truth to lead to that moment. Is always saying she sees monsters. Her mother would ask if she'd see any. True. But we don't necessarily know that she always sees monsters, and we don't necessarily know that there are monsters. My concern is that she was afraid, and now Unless this is just her going hee hee, like she's being playful. I don't think that, because Scurry cancels out the playfulness in my mind. I don't think it's playful. If it was playful, then there would be a big argument for that. We could probably, defend that choice. The real issue here is that it's a it's just information. It's not it's less about a moment of cause and effect and more, let's have this conversation. So my point is, in writing, yes, we as people will have random conversations with each other that kind of spark from nothing. But in a book, every single beat needs to move things forward. And I'm assuming there are monsters in this story, and that's what this is setting up. But we have to allow the rhythm of the scene to interact with itself. It can't just be, all right, here's the conversation moment. Like, we there's trees, it's waving, and then, oh, there's a big scary eye, she runs. Okay, now we get introduced the character's name and the mother, and then the mother and her have like a really nice moment. No longer is she scared. I grunted, she tilted her head, and then her sparkling eyes look down. So tell me, and now it's just the energy has dissipated, and it's just sort of like, let's talk about the monsters. That is the energy that's happening. That is my argument. That's my argument. I would allow the child's imagination to come through, adding to the idea that all the creatures she sees, real or imaginary. I love this, but my pushback on that would be, don't do that in your first chapter. Allow bits and pieces to stand out, but don't spend time, especially in the first 300 words, having the child go on about, because that's not necessarily the narrative. So when it comes to things like this, they are important for character, but if it's just to explain that and to show it, you would benefit more by allowing the character to do it the whole book than to overemphasize it in the beginning of the book, if that makes sense. Did you see a dragon last time or a griffin? Then work smaller and smaller. Yeah, maybe. I would probably avoid this altogether. I would want to know what the story is about. I don't really necessarily know what the story is about right now. What if the girl comes back and has instead shut down instead of her? Then her mom can try to pry the information. Well, now you're talking. Now we're maintaining the emotional connection to that opening beat. Though how scared she is also important to know. Maybe she's not so frightened she saw a ghost, and if she's always seeing monsters, quote unquote, because of her imagination, then was this a real-time monster this time, or did her imagination get the best of her? So there's a lot of questions that I have that aren't necessarily being explored through the emotional truth and behavior of the characters. Again, we don't know that's true. Let's see if there's mention of that. Let's see. Has learned not to mention them. So let's see. Under the thick needles, I made my way to the fence. Great iron barrier, safe, blah, 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 blah. It was there with my face pressing against the bars that I saw it. In the forest beyond was a great moving trees. It whipped around, some eyes. Runs back. Mother! Hey, hurry, hurry. I ran and lifted up one of the... Now she has a wooden bucket filled with water. So, it has nothing to do with any... None of this is even part of the narrative yet. And then gripping the end, she plays with my curls. Hey, gone on one of your adventures again? Have you? And she's like, no. So none of that is really relevant. We don't know that, so it doesn't. She's so scared she won't speak. No, I got what you were saying earlier. Those are all good possibilities. I like the idea of her coming in and shouting she saw something, and then her mom chasticating her for her imagination instead of. Yeah, I mean, all right, well, that's a choice. That's a choice. I like more healthy relationships with the parents, mostly because but that would be a choice. But again, narratively speaking, this is the thing. When you're developmental editing or checking your work, coming up with a new There's a difference between suggestions that sort of tell the writer the book I want to write. Like, hey, you know what I want? I want to write the book where the mother is angry and hates the child, or the mother, she should be chastising her. And that's not necessarily the book that is the story that's being told. It looks like they have a loving relationship. So any suggestions should not take away from what is trying to be presented on the page. What I am saying is the emotional truth needs to maintain consistency, and it doesn't. If the character gasps, first off, my first question to the writer would be, is she actually scared? Did she see something for real? Does she have an active imagination, as Chris was saying? But if so, how is that playing with her fear, if this is fear at all? All that will indicate how this plays out more. We don't have that information because it's not clear on the page. As far as making the mother, like, elbow her or something, like, none of that is important to what the writer is trying to express. So you have to keep that in mind with your own writing too. You don't have to create conflict by having the mother pull out a gun and shoot the leg of the... How dare you talk about... You know what I'm saying? Like, you have to think within the presence of what the narrative is showing you. Yeah, again, this doesn't feel like what the relationship he's building between them. This right here is completely loving, and she's also sort of like asking her daughter, there's a little bit more going on there. So do you think that an ode book would sell? My cousin bought me, I think I talked about this in another video. I think any book would sell. I think any book could sell. I mean, there's a book, it comes down to marketing. It's brand, marketing, and awareness. You have to advertise your book. Writing a thing won't sell it. So I do think it would sell, but it comes down to marketing. That's good. So the tree really had eyes. We don't know if the tree really had eyes. There's not enough context. I think it's fine, but if she has a big imagination, her mother should know about it. So it would make sense that dreams big like dragons. Yeah, sure. Yeah. Again, it's all choices. But are there dragons in this world? I think changing away from scurry to something more playful, like bound back. Yeah. But again, maybe she is scared. We don't know. Long time ago, my sister started a story with, it was a dark and stormy night, the worst line you could use. But what she wrote after was like, finish it. Oh, that's awesome. I was sucked into a story in the first paragraph, and she never finished the story. Sometimes that happens like that. This is why I like mystery stories, because the unraveling of information becomes the conflict. Well, true, but even in a mystery, you need context, you need clarity, and you need concision. Like, you can't have mystery if it's just, I'm not going to reveal information. In a mystery, there has to be enough information to move stuff forward, Even a mystery subplot is fun because you follow people following clues. Yeah, I agree with that. I like mysteries. Hey, what's up, Angel Faye? It was a jump scare. She felt safe behind a fence, and the horse means there could be strangers at the fence. Also, the child doesn't even know if the tree really had eyes. It might. All right. None of that is on the page. So, Chris, again, my question earlier would still hold. You would have to at least present that reality, and remember, it's first person. So, if it's first person and the character is whatever, the eyes hopped from the tree. Whatever, beating. Okay, like if that's the case, remember it's still first person, so it's beyond the barrier. Time for that already. bring back the water, whatever. Right? That would be like a starting zero draft. Like you start getting those things. You got to start getting so the idea. What you're saying, the jump scare. She felt safe, right? So maybe it's not popped, right? Maybe you know, thank the gods of the barrier. What lies beyond that barrier? No time. Something like that, right? You gotta, and then the horse thing means that there could be strangers at the fence. You know what I'm saying? Like if it's just horses and it's just a beat, like you know what it is, Chris. You're intimately invested in it. But there's not right now it's horses, and if you want to reveal that, they're really strangers later, that's fine. But you know, the characters would still understand what they're talking about, so the discussion should be based on that idea, if that makes sense. You know what I'm saying? I kind of want to get through this a little bit more, but I agree. I want to write one where the inspector is invited to a party and becomes the prey. Oh, that'd be cool. Tomorrow I'm doing another spin to see how many projects you writing at the same time, my friend. He spends the entire book discovering why and who is trying to kill him. That'd be fun. Go for it, Cindy. That sounds good. As for the week's project called Dragon Academy, I found names for dragons. Woo! I like it. Los Ares, the new magical friend, and discovery of new adventures. Very cool. Very cool. Look at that. Let's give you a close. Way to go, Angel. I find it. I don't know. The characters hard to find out who they are. Not what Thomas teaches. Doesn't mean I don't change the names later. My main characters have names. It's the secondary characters I don't really, because they might not even last the entire book. Yes, it's all good. I was just answering all the questions. I am taking your info in. Fantastic. 15 projects. All right, let's keep reading. Oh, yes, the trees love to dance with the wind and bend with the rain and snow. I hear some of them even bow to the sun. This is an interesting character beat. What about the other monsters, the ones that cause the claps? What are they like? This is exposition now. This isn't she's 10 years old. This isn't, you know what I'm saying? What about? Oh, this is the mother. This is the mother. Oh, we're losing it. She laughed a big night. Oh, great. Cheeks. Do all the trees in the forest move? So this just feels like let's create conversation. Remember, dialogue cannot be exposition in the sense of like, we need to talk about this thing. It has to come from something honest and truthful within the characters. If it so happens, like let's say we are doing a mystery, okay? You know what I'm saying? Like they're having a conversation. They're not just giving direct information did you get those reports? I could have wrote, did you get those reports I asked you for 3 hours ago? I could do that, but we don't really need that. If I wanted it to be about the hours, did you get those reports? You think I just sit around eating pie all day? With that good of yours, maybe. He tossed the phone. All of them? He says, yeah, all of them. Yeah. You know, now it's a cause and reflect. There's banter, there's wittiness. You know, like they're having a conversation. You know, we could even get into debate. Did you get those reports? So this is the debate. What do you think I was saying? Right. Well, yeah. Okay. All right. All of them. Yeah, all of them. See, you can, you know, sat behind his desk. Not bad for 3 hours. You know what I'm saying? Like, you want dialogue to come from the characters, their relationship with each other, and less about information. Because you can always end up having dialogue literally be, I asked you for that report on the ice pick killer like 3 hours ago, right? And it's like, yeah, I got them here. And before you ask, it's all of them. You know what I'm saying? Now we don't have we lose out on a character moment because we're just giving information. It's just here. You need the reader needs to know this, and this is why dialogue sort of like fails at its entry, because it's just informing, and it's not letting us learn the information through the characters. So you always want dialogue to feel like it has a purpose greater than informing. Greater than informing. I might change the name of my villain. Yeah, do it. With a hot water, a horror writer. Don't forget about sites like Critique Circle. It's basically a community-driven critique group. You can't just pay. You have to critique. Oh, that's interesting. I'll keep Algernon. Am I saying it right? Algernon? But I'll have to change the last name. My brain was busy. Your brain is busy, my friend. All those books. That is a good name. Algernon. Yeah. That's interesting. Very interesting. I agree, Cindy. Algebra is a good name for a village. Algernon. Wait, didn't you come up with the name? Sorry, I do that too. All right. Oh yes, the trees love to dance. They bend. Blah blah blah. What about the other monsters? The ones that cause the claps. What are they like? We don't know if they cause the claps. All right. So this is just a conversation out of nowhere. This is just letting the reader know something. This is backstory, history. This is exposition. I would flag this. Miss Hale say this should be said they crawled out from the earth and like, why are they having this conversation? Especially in the first chapter, or if this is the first chapter, why are they having this conversation now? They should be again, if a scene is seeing trees move and her imagination runs wild. If that's the first beat, okay? Let's say that's beat 1, okay? You have to think, like, what is the next potential thing? In this situation, it's she runs off. She runs off because she's scared, or it's a playful scared. But in reality, she was getting water, is really what the deal is. So she runs from the barrier and back to her village, though I'd probably say mom, with the water bucket. So now there's a call and response. Now the scene has a rhythm and a purpose. You can set up that she has a wild her wild imagination. You can set that up. Fine. But she's getting water, so she should be doing something. She should be doing something. getting the water. All right, that's fine. Then, because she has the water, oh yeah, I got to get back to my mom. You know, she runs back. She runs back to her village, her mom with the water bucket. Okay, and maybe she's thinking about what is beyond the barrier for a moment. Not, I wouldn't go on for more than a page. You know what I'm saying? So now she gets back to her mom. All right. So she runs back to her mom. I would show this beat. This is probably 100 words, maybe 50 words. Okay. And then the next scene is she tells her mom that she saw monsters, right? Monsters. Okay. But again, it doesn't make sense because she was just letting her imagination run wild, right? So if she's thinking about what's beyond the barrier, then she asks her mom if there really are monsters beyond the barrier. And then the mother is probably like, none we have to worry about because we have the barrier, right? And that becomes the conversation. Okay? And that's the third beat. Now, I haven't read further yet, so we don't really know. But now the scene has a rhythm. We have the setup. I would almost argue that this is just a secondary beat. And then we have the midpoint, which is the conversation about monsters. And you could even have Janation gets away with her, away. And this also sparks her to run because she's thinking about the monsters. Okay. All right. So she runs back to her mom. And fine. Let's show this beat. She's running around. Okay. And then you get to the mom conversation and she's like, whatever. She is out of breath and trying not to spill the water. And she asks her mom, monsters are beyond the barrier. None that we have to worry about. So now this becomes the conflict of what was set up, which is the monsters. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, right now, the monsters aren't really set up per se. And then her running back is supposed to be playful, but I think it should be, it has to be connected to what's happening. Again, you don't have to write it this way, Chris. I'm just telling people, writers in general, like, you need to think of scenes with a setup, a conflict, and a resolve. So let me take this and see where the scene is going to go. Let me do this so I don't lose my spot. All right. Let's see where the scene's going to go. All right. Miss Hale said they crawled out from the earth, slaughtered a whole village. Mindy Hale was not around when the collapse happened. She only knows what she was told by frightened, cynical people who were probably just children at the time. Another big thing is the environment's not here. I wouldn't allow the environment wherever the environment. I don't know what the environment is. I don't know where they are. I think they're at the village, but again, I don't know if they actually got to the village yet. They're just floating heads right now. It's just a conversation back and forth, and it's just data. Were you around? Their mother and daughter. She's 10 years old. I was still my mommy's belly. Did she tell you about what happened? She said it was a pandemonium. Everyone was out to save themselves. She's talking to a 10-year-old. No, like, grr. I forget this too, but body movement. Yeah. Now be careful with body movement. You want behavior to directly reflect the emotional truth of the characters and what's going on. But their body movement should also be influencing the environment. And right now, this is a 10-year-old having this conversation. Is it true that the buildings touch the sky? In some places, yes. I wish I could have seen them. Maybe you will see them in your dreams. This is just back and forth. We have no idea. Yeah, we don't know who these characters are. They're not necessarily being affected by the information that's being presented. Um, is it true buildings touch the sky? Oh, my mom sat there, quiet, keeping, or, whatever, I don't know what she's doing. I'm just going to say she's doing something. So she's, what is it? Foraging berries. Just for a point. Just for a point. Foraging? How do you spell foraging? Foraging berries. All right. My mom's leaned over. Foraging berries. Or something like, my mom leaned over, quiet, foraging berries. You know, stepping back. Then I whatever. In some places, yes. So now, did I spell it? Forage. Forage. All right, I got it. Quiet, foraging berries as if stepping back. Now, obviously, she's 10 years old, so she might not actually, see the world this way. But in this beat, what's happening now is we are getting a moment of character, subtext, and there's behavior. Her gentle smile broke the silence. In some places, yes. Now this dialogue holds substance for the character and isn't just information. So that's something you have to think about when you're writing dialogue. That if you are, if you are thinking about adding movement or behavior or physicality, don't let it just, let me put this down here. Don't let it just be words and don't let it just be behavior. You want the physical behavior or the lack of behavior. You want the dialogue itself to influence something greater, something from the character. All right. I wish I could have seen it. Maybe you will in your dreams. This is just, it's like Keelimp said, it's back and forth. There's nothing going on, right? That's where I have to see everything. What? Oh, I huffed and cold water splashed out of the bucket onto my pants, grunting. Oh, this should be placed. Placed the bucket down. Come on now, my mom said, don't give up. I always like to use conjunction. So they aren't home. So they didn't scurry back to the village. So they didn't scurry back to the little village. All right. Why do we have to live in the furthest house from the stream? This is just more exposition. The villain I'm writing right now is like 6 feet tall, and I try to emphasize that with lumbering footsteps and him towering over the main characters, like booming voice. You could do that, though. It'd be really funny if he was 6 foot and his voice was like this. It sounded just like this. So this is just more. I need the reader to know. Oh, there's floods when it rains. It hasn't rained in years. Foreshadowing. That means it's gonna rain in years. It's gonna rain. Zaria Zaria. It's only been 2 weeks and it's going to rain tonight. I can feel it. All right. It sounded just like this. All right. Then why do we have to lug these buckets all the way home? Well, I thought it would be nice to eat some supper and a bath would be okay. All right. There is no conflict in this chapter yet. No conflict in this scene. And we're at 626 words. That's including some of my notes. It's a 33 word scene, and there's no conflict yet. I do agree with physicality, though. I love characters who command the scene. Oh yeah, when the characters are like present in the scene, it elevates it for sure. Probably why I love my villains so much. I mean, if you didn't love your villain, like, why would you write it, right? You'd be like, I hate this character. I wish I could kill him off. Anyway, I could do with a bath, she said, sniffing under her arm. You know what I'm saying? Like little playful things like that create character. There's always opportunity. Yes, it's a zero draft, so a lot of this wouldn't be here. But I'm just trying to give everybody a chance to sort of think about when they're writing, like how to look at scenes. She looked pointedly at the hole-filled sweater I wore over my clothes every day. This should have been representative. This should have been a part of it earlier. We should have gotten a sense of this, because now it's just, we're just telling the audience, by the way, I tugged at the hem. Like she should have tugged at a hem earlier, or whatever. Rolling my eyes, I said, fine. Then picked the bucket back up and continued my trek uphill. It felt like forever before we finally saw the white stone house on the top of the last slope of town. Evening, missus. Our neighbor, Mr. Clark, tipped his hat down, covering his wrinkled face. He reached out and took the 2 buckets from my mom, not offering to take mine. I grunted and slushed the water around, possibly the smallest amount more than necessary. Ah, your wee lass, is that anything? Is really growing strong now. Growing strong now. And she? He said before winking at me. I scowled back. That she is, my mother said, strong and stubborn. Like a mule. He widened his eyes. This is technically not true. The character Zaria has not been stubborn or strong or a sense of, nor has the character acted a mule. So this is either the mother is just saying it, or, the writer is trying to tell the reader she is this. And remember, you cannot say a character is something until we see it first. Seeing it first and then having characters confirm it is stronger writing. If you go, this character's super brave and very courageous, it's not true. It's technically considered not true. So when I was writing and screenwriting and working with the industry and stuff, that was a big rule that they stood by. They said you can't have characters tell somebody, unless because you're running out of time and it's television and you're just like, oh, we need the smartest person we know, Dave or whatever, or Melissa, right? But in narrative, long form narrative, you have time to establish character routine, behavior, etc., etc. So if a character is strong and stubborn, don't have someone say they are strong and stubborn until we see the character being strong and stubborn. And then later on, you could have a character be like, you're always so strong and stubborn. I got a 7-foot-tall female love interest in one of my books. Love her to death. 7 feet tall. I'd like to climb that. I like when there's attention to the mundane details of a fantasy world, like the bucket and a shower. Yeah, that stuff is great. It's definitely great. But if it's just informed, it's missing something. Mike in Better Call Saul is a good example of that. Mike in Better Call Saul is a good example. Oh, what I'm just... Yeah. Mike, yeah. So we learn a lot about Mike based on what he does and not because we are told, he's very good at his job. Bro barely speaks in any of the shows. He's just doing crazy stuff. But that's the thing, like him doing that, right, is what tells us so much. Okay, my daughter is down for the night, though she has something with my shoes, and she's always plays with them. She's playing with your shoes. All right. We're almost done. I crossed my arms and hoped to die. It stuck my tongue out at the old man. Well, she's 10. This would be its own beat. My mother chastised. I'm so sorry, Mr. Clark. I had a go at the last. Is it last or last? She was just retelling. I think it's last. Last or last? She was just retaliating. Still, I teach her to respect her elders. This isn't necessarily true because we haven't seen her do that. You calling me old, Mrs.? You never. My mother brought her hand. My mother brought her hand to her heart and threw her head back dramatically. Yeah, like the car tracking scene, for example. It's a 7-minute scene of him Yeah, exactly. He's outsmarting these people, and we're not being told one thing. We're just being shown such great detail of the character. Amish, the shrill voice. Came from the, are you over here making a nuisance of yourself? Mr. Deer, all right. Nothing is happening in this scene. I want to read to the end to see if something does happen. So you're only a nuisance to me then? My love, you're the only one who would ever put up with me. That's right, and don't you ever forget that. They laughed. Ha ha! Adults are so weird. Boop, 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 boop. Do you two want to join us for supper? Miss Clark said. I made a vegetable stew. I don't want to intrude. Oh, Lillian. Now we know the mother's name. Did it again. You could never. It's always a pleasure. It's always a pleasure to have you and that bonny lass around. Well, okay, but first, go make sure all the chickens are safely in the coop for the night. Come, lass, I'll help you catch those feathered devils. Mr. Clark shooed me out the door. Out the door. They went inside. After all 5 children were in the coop, chickens, I decided as old as Mr. Clark was, he must have been there for the claps. So I asked, have you ever seen a monster? Ah, lass, I have seen plenty of monsters in my life. It's probably going to be man and beast. Man and beast! Both man and beast. Man is the worst. People like to pretend otherwise, but some of the worst monsters can come from mankind. All right. This is we're gonna cliche a little bit. The question: do you want to join supper? It can be rewritten, right? Well, Angel Faye, yeah, but that's not necessarily what I'm looking for as a developmental editor. I'm not doing line editing here. I'm looking at the greater invisible stuff. And right now, after reading this, my least concern is the supper line. You know what I'm saying? Like, I wouldn't be like, oh, let's rewrite the supper line. What's happening is there's no conflict. There's no rhythm to the scene. Like, if I was writing this, there's monsters, and then they meet up with Mr. Clark. Like, is that really the end? Like, what is this about? Like, I would want something else. Scene movements, right? Yeah, there's little bit. There's nothing happening. If I was to break this down in just it's trees, mom, are there monsters? Mr. Clark. Mom, are there monsters? Then it's were you around for the clap? And let's be honest, aren't we all around for the clap? And then it's Mr. Clark, and then it's let's have dinner but put the chickens away, right? Yeah, it didn't lead anywhere. So my big note for this would be less, see, like this is not important until line editing is like near the end. And maybe draft 3 I would start really going, we got to rework the dialogue or rework the words. But the big thing I would say here is I don't know what this scene is about. This does not feel like a fragmented section of a greater narrative. Yes, maybe the monsters will come back. Yes, maybe the horse thing will eventually, we'll learn that it's about strangers, but I think that should have been explored just a little bit. Um, I don't understand the Mr. Clark thing. There was no, it was just a series of events happen, and that would be my first big note as a development editor, which has little to do with any of the other stuff. I feel like if I had, which there's no time for that. If I just did this like exposition thing, like if I just did exposition, whatever. I don't think there's any expression, but character. I think if I did that, this would have led me not to read the scene because I would have already been like, it needs work, right? But it's not doing anything. So even if I just did shimmering under the thick needle branches of the pine trees, each low branch scraped at my skin. This is shimmering under the thick needle branches of the pine. Shimmering under the thick needled branches of the pine trees. Each low branch shimmering. I don't really think this is a character choice. I'm going to just say this is more exposition. And the reason is because the character's attached to it. If the character wasn't attached to it, it would be description for description's sake. Each low branch scraped at my skin. Exposition. All right. It's not character because we're not really learning a lot about the character. I made my way to the fence. That's exposition. A great iron barrier built to keep us safe, but one that only made me feel trapped. Choice or experience. I don't think that this is a position, so like later on this would be affected, but right now this is just exposition. It was there with my face pressing against the bars that I saw it. In the forest beyond was a great moving tree. Its trunk whipped around and bent until large wooden eyes stared back at me. Gasping, I scurried back to the same. Gasping would be close to, but it's not. This is just exposition. You see what I'm saying? Like it's all just information. Zara, my mom. This is definitely exposition. Hurry, or this is exposition. All right, so like, again, even without, I ran up to her and lifted one of the buckets filled with water. Now filled with water. Well, all right. I would have liked to see the water get filled. Gripping the end of the one girl, she pulled it straight and plucked a needle out. This is actually a character bit. Gone on any adventures? Have you? She released the strand and sprung back into place. No, I grunted. She tilted her head and raised her eyebrow. Yes, I admitted, tucking my chin down. Her sparkling eyes smiled down. All right, I'm done. All right, so, as you can see, it's just a lot of red, but a little bit of green. So that's good. Now, I read it first, and we found that nothing was happening. Something was happening. Like things were happening, but nothing is happening. It's not moving through the characters' emotional experiences and choices. Characters aren't necessarily making choices. Yeah, she's shimmering under a thick needle branches of the pine, but why is she doing that? Why is she avoiding it? What is she doing in the trees? near the trees, each low branch scraping at my skin. Well, how does that influence her? Does she change her approach? Does she stop and look at it, or did she cut herself, or did it just scrape? How did it affect her skin? That starts becoming character. Now we're actually experiencing it. So when you're writing, you have to think of your scenes. If we're going to just talk about straight writing, like just prose themselves, you have to set something up. Like if you go Chris sat at a table is boring, right? But if this is going to set up the plot, because this is moving the plot forward, right? Then you have to think to yourself, all right, his family, his family chatted around the Christmas table. It's Chris sat and folded. Okay, so now there's a couple things going on. His family chattered. Constant, unintelligible murmur around the Christmas table, as I could even do this. Chris's family, just start off with him. All right, and folded his napkin on his lap. So this becomes character because he's making choices. He folded his napkin on his lap. It's an emotional experience. It's how he's identifying and describing his family, a constant unintelligible murmur around the Christmas table as he sat. And we're learning about what's happening. We understand it's Christmas time. We understand he's sitting around the table, and we're building the environment through Chris's choices and emotional experience. If it's just Chris sat at his table, his family, his family talked around it. It was Christmas time, and they were all in their own conversations. Chris, folded his nap. Well, this becomes a new movement now, but folded his napkin on his lap. Right? This is where it just starts. Nothing is really happening. It's just information. This is happening, and this is happening, and this is happening. This is already setting the scene. This is introducing the character and the way they see their world, right? Constant, unintelligible murmur. Constant, okay? It's an emotional experience. We know it's Christmas. This is just telling us statements, and we're not really experiencing the scene yet. It feels like a veiled exposition to describe Earth post-disaster that brought down the big cities. I think you're starting too early in the story. Well, maybe we'd have to get a few more chapters in for that to be explored, because we don't know where it was supposed to be going. Right now, as a development editor, I can't just say that, because all I did was read one scene in one chapter. Well, technically there's like 3 scenes here, but I read one chapter, and as of now, this chapter needs a rewrite. It's not doing anything. It doesn't have a purpose. I tend to end chapters on emotional cliffhangers, but I'm also still learning novel knowledge structure. There's nothing wrong with doing that, but remember, you got to switch it up. Sometimes it's emotional cliffhangers. Sometimes it's just the potential for a solution. Sometimes it's a satisfying resolution completely for that chapter's purpose. If you switch it up, it'll definitely make it more engaging. If it's always an emotional cliffhanger, you might be draining your reader. And what I mean by that is, if they always feel like they have to keep reading, but they want to take a break, you have to allow that ebb and flow. I hate to use that term, but the ebb and flow of a reader's presented experience as well. So sometimes you have to let it feel like, here's a good stopping point, because that's part of the presentation as a writer. Hey, SB, I made it in time for the poll. What did you miss? Lots of fun. Lots of fun. Oh yeah, it's time for the poll. It's time for the poll. All right, that's pretty much it for today. With that, let's go to the poll. What's something you used to worry about when you first started writing? We have 4 choices. The book being dreadful. We have bad reviews, not being able to write a second book, and of course, not making enough sales to live on. To live on and on and on. All right. Before we get into it, we still have a couple of seconds for a vote. Oh, we have 19 votes, 17 votes, 19 votes, 19 votes. We have 19 votes. If you haven't voted yet, please do. I'm going to do my quick spiel. If you just don't know, you don't know. But if you do, remember at makearightlefthear.com, I have books available. Books that can help you with outlining. If you're a pantser or a plotter, remember the beginning of this book is all about understanding a narrative structure so you can think about it as you're writing. However, if you're a plotter, the whole second half explores the 27 plot point outline and shows you examples and helps you learn how to outline. If you like epic fantasy, remember that Death of the King is available on Patreon and Substack. It is a educational element as well. You get to see the 0, 1st, and 3rd draft of the book with notes and educational elements that teach you how to use what I talk about in those chapter examples. More importantly, if you didn't know, these 2 books, Breaking Down Success, are available currently. If you're trying to be successful in the entertainment industry, including being a writer, as you are, these books are definitely helpful. But I will say the 3rd book should be out by the end of the year. Hopefully, if I have enough time to finish formatting it. More importantly, How to Write a Narrative is completed, like I said, but we are moving on to the next series, which starts next week, right? Next week, right? Yeah, next week. I will release it on Thursday or Friday-ish. The next series will be all about writing. I'm going to teach you literally, no pun intended, writing prose and understanding your prose and looking at your prose. We're going to go over line editing. We're going to go over how to structure your prose and sentences. We're also going to teach you some ideas about sentence construction from, how to use a comma splice or a fragment, like how to use sentence structure to change up the rhythm of your prose in general. But more importantly, it will be a deep dive into the writing process. Other than that, if you haven't done so already, please bloop the beard and bloop that like button. Why? Well, it helps the algorithm. Woo, help the algorithm. All right, back to the poll. The poll says, what's something you used to worry about when you first started? Well, it says here, last place, not being able to write a second book. Yeah. I mean, there is that argument, that discussion where it's like, how many books do you have in you? Do you have... This tastes disgusting, this Pepsi. They're out of my Pepsi, that's all I'm saying. Do you have more than one book in you? And not just like I could write, right? Because you don't know, right? If you're writing your first book, you don't know how the process is going to go. It might take you however long, whatever. But I will say this. Not being able to write a second book, I don't think that was ever a worry for me. All right. And then we got a tie for second place with bad reviews and not making enough sales to live on. Oh, SB says, I voted for not making sales. I'm in the process of switching careers, so I hope my book sells well. Hell yeah. I do 15 projects from 3 different genres. I didn't think I had a 4th, but it's in my head. Flowers, I think you have like 30 books in you. You just got to write them. They're going to come out. Let's talk about bad reviews. I don't think I ever really cared about bad reviews. And the reason why is because when I was in the music industry, when people said they didn't like my music, it used to bother me. And then I was like, why is it bothering? Like, we sell out shows, we have shows, people support us and like us, and people know who we are. Why do I care if somebody and it always comes down to the number game, where it's like, I talk about how there's like whatever 200 and something million people in the world, and all you really need is like 1% of them to even like you. So there's going to be a lot of people who don't like you, but if that 1% of the population likes you, or the 1% of the population of the world likes you, you're fine. So you have enough space. I would even say if like you released a book and 5,000 people were like, I hate this book. Your goal is to have 5,001 people like the book. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, it doesn't really matter if people like the book or not. It matters that 1% of the population of the world, or wherever you live, or wherever you market the book, likes the book. That's it. I stopped caring about it. There was this one, I think I've said this before in the past, but there was one guy, he comes up to me, and I was like, oh man, you're at like every one of our shows. And he goes, I love you guys. And I was like, oh, cool. And he's like, but you know, if I was to be honest, you have too much double kick, you know, maybe less double bass, you know, like, you know, that kind of stuff. And I was like, oh, all right, that's something I'll think about. And I walked away and I'm like, well, why keep coming to the shows if you don't like the music? But like, they like the music, you know? It's always weird. Like, people always have reviews like assholes. Everyone's got one. All right. As far as not making enough money, you know, I'll always be honest about this. If you're trying to make money selling books, go get a job, right? Like, that was the first thing someone said to me about music, too. I was like, I want to make money with my music. And they're like, go get a job. Because at the end of the day, a thing will not make you money. It can't make you money. We've already talked about that. Write a book, put it in the closet. No one's going to buy it. If you have the money and the resources to market and advertise, your book is going to sell. It just will. If it's good or bad, that might influence sales for next time. But the idea to make money with your book, I learned, 21 votes. I learned early on in my career that it's less about, you know, making money and more about building a fan base, building your brand, and connecting with your audience, because that will turn into sales. I used to think, make a thing, make money. And a lot of my mentors were like, no, even my millionaire mentors were always like, if you make something to make money, it won't make money. You have to start with a mission, a purpose. You have to start with your brand. You have to start with a goal. Like, what are you trying to accomplish with the thing? And what's the solution, et cetera, all these other things. And once you start building your expertise in that world and people see you and your expertise, and by the way, that doesn't mean you have to teach. It means that if you write romance and you understand romance and talk about romance and you always have interesting things to say about romance, that is your expertise. And now people will see you as that, and then they will support you. It's the reason that Jenna Marissi sells books, because a lot of her reviews, especially the bad ones, are always, well, I appreciate her information and what she says on YouTube, and I thought her books would be good, but she doesn't follow her advice. But then there are people who love the book. They give it 4 and 5 stars, and they go, I found Jenna, she was teaching, and because she gives really good advice, and I like her advice, I decided to buy her book. So they didn't buy the book because she wrote the book. They bought the book because they saw that she was talking about writing, and it was in a way that was a little bit more advanced than what they understood about writing, and it made them see writing differently. That leads to sales. The book itself doesn't necessarily lead to sales. Oh, whoa, we got a whole bunch of stuff here. I switched between screenwriting and novel writing because I feel like my historical stories couldn't be made in the current cinema climate, and because historical stories tend to be long. I will say yay or nay to that, but I agree with you. All right. Hollywood is especially not a fan of pirate stories, and I love pirate. You know, you missed the window. They were for a little bit. Also, pirate stories are insanely expensive to shoot. Well, yeah, technically any period piece. If we filmed a movie that takes place in the 90s, that's a period piece, which is crazy. If 5,000 people didn't like my book, I'd be happy and laugh, because at least that means well, I want to agree with that statement, but also there's like that small little bit of like where people don't read books, they just hate on things. And they're like, I hated that book. Did you read it? No. Well, then why do you hate it? Because I read somewhere that person liked orange, and orange is the worst color. I like green, and they didn't like green, so I hate them. And you're like, okay. I'd be lying if I said I didn't care about bad reviews. Hey, there's nothing wrong about caring about bad reviews. I'm just saying there's no value in bad reviews if it's the least Like if you have 100 reviews and 51 of them are bad, yes, something's going on. However, if I may, I knew somebody who released an album and they got into a fight with somebody, argument, not a physical. They got into a argument, and the person arguing with them had a bigger following, and that person got their people to review bomb their album, and it went. So there is influence for that. That's why I say reviews aren't necessarily, they're important, but they're not important. I'm late. At least I made it to time for the poll. Welcome back. Always a pleasure seeing you. I like that I make you laugh, Flowers. To be honest, I'm more worried about good reviews and inflating my already massive ego. You and me. Hey, Chris, the 90s came and went for me too, my friend. Also, I hope today was helpful. I know you announced that this was your piece. I definitely hope that I was inspiring and not dissuading you, my friend. Got that massive ego. Oh, and finally, in number one place, the first place, we have the book being... I just saw Flowers comment. Was that album saying? Saint Anger in me. Let's not go into the age thing. Good Lord, at 64. That's still young. You're still a youngin'. All right, the book being dreadful. Yeah, I would say when I first started out, this would probably be the one I choose to. When I first started out, yeah. What's something you used to worry about when you first... My book being dreadful. I'll say this, though. I also felt that way about music until I didn't. You know what I'm saying? There was a certain part of me that started understanding the industry and realizing, hey, this is this thing. I still have my days where my creative brain is an idiot. And I start having these doubts and these fears. And it's good to have a nice community around you, like we do, where, you know, we can sort of elevate and celebrate one another, as we always say, and recenter them. We're going to have bad days. It's going to happen. But remember, your greatest work is still in you. Whether you wrote your greatest thing now or you're going to, it's there. It's waiting to be written. Do I feel everything we do will be great? I don't know if that's necessarily true. But the fact that we wrote the book, it's so hard to write, to start and finish writing a book, going through all the stages. Because, you know, some people believe you only have to write one draft. But it's one draft, then there's a second, there's rewrites, maybe there's taking stuff out, then there's the readers, and you got to sit through waiting for them to get back to you. And that's going to, you know, they're not getting paid sometimes. And maybe they don't like the book, but they're your friends, so you ask them to read it, and they're like, "Oh, I didn't know it was going to be work." You know, there's a lot of, you know, it's a process. So just to finish a book is fantastic. But anyway, the book being dreadful, number 159%. Sage anger. Yeah, that's fine. I know it's crap right now. No offense taken. I appreciate that there's no offense taken, and I appreciate that you let me look at this and stuff like that. Yeah, no, I know it's a first shot. You know, that is a caveat, but this is the best place to look at it because it gives you direction and it starts helping you with everything. But I'm always thankful. I think this is like your second or third thing you sent to me, so I'm very happy for it. I chose the second book option. I think it is what is keeping me from finishing my first. Once you put it out, your first, it's like a roller coaster. You can't stop writing. No, I agree. Yeah. That's the thing with writers, you know, the creative people. We start writing and then it's boom, 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 boom. Just keep it coming. Keep it coming. Ooh, you got to keep it coming. Yeah. All right, what do we got here? What do we got? Oh, you know what we got time for? We got some time. Let's do it. Let's answer an audience. If you have questions about writing in general, or write your book, or you just want to ask me a question about anything, pertaining to industry, business, whatever, or writing in general. Please, let me hear it. I like some of the word choices. Yeah, but again, just to be fair, a developmental editor is less about the word choices and more about the invisible stuff. Uh, Even for yourselves as writers, this isn't just the Afghani, this is everybody. Even for yourselves as writers, when you're writing, don't worry so deeply on the word choices. Just make sure that what you are writing is directly connected to the characters, the narrative movement, and ultimately the emotional truth. The words can always be cleaned up and fixed later, but what you're writing must connect to something of substance and can't just be a list of things that happen. That'll also improve in time. Look at it as a starting point, not crap. I agree with that statement. That's how I look at most of my writing. Doesn't feel so negative that way. I love it. I love it. I'm gonna give that gets an applause. That gets an applause. I don't know when I get into the flow state, my brain comes up with the most verbose words from the recesses of my consciousness. Excellent lexicon use. An excellent array of the lexicon. Fantastic, sir. Fantastic. Yeah, I mean, sometimes this is the thing. If you're writing and the words are just coming out great, but your job still as a writer is not the words you write, but the meaning behind the words. If the invisible stuff isn't connected to those words don't necessarily mean nothing. Because again, you could write some like we could be as simple as, you know, if I write, you know, Dave dropped to his knees, his whole chest collapsing of its air. Like, this is just words right now. This isn't coming from something. It's not going from something. It's just a statement, right? But we could say this is an emotional experience, but we have to build on it. And that's the thing. Like, I gave this an example. I was like, the clouds broke from the sky and raged in the sun's orange blood. You know, whatever. You know, like sometimes I see people send me sentences like this, and I'm like, I don't get it. And they're like, oh, but the words. And I'm like, yeah, but words don't mean, like, it's just words. If it's just words, like, this is just words. This has a little bit more going on, but we're not with, this is just a sentence right now. Like, you as the reader, Dave dropped to his knees, his whole chest collapsing of its air, doesn't mean anything to us yet. And that's what context, clarity, and concision means. You have to build enough context to earn this as an emotional beat. And that's stuff that comes way before this moment. We have to know who Dave is, feel for Dave, have empathy for Dave. We have to understand what Dave is going through. And then when this moment happens, in this very simple sentence of Dave dropped to his knees, his whole chest collapsing of its air, then takes on another meaning. This line in itself could create a reactive emotional experience for the reader. But without the stuff beforehand, building the context through clarity, subtext, that is in there, it doesn't matter. And a lot of writers will start with this sentence as if it has weight, and it doesn't. You can start with vague but informative, sure. Blood ripped from his mouth. The crowd roared around the ring. All right, now we're building it. Okay. All right, he's you know, 3, 4. Oh, no, the referee said, referee muffled said, we got to do it through Dave's thing. The referee said, or counted. You could write counted, right? But we don't need counted because he's counting. The referee said, his voice muffled and jarred. Chaos. You know. Okay. Jarred in the chaos of the ring. Okay. Now we're building on it, right? We're building context. So now we know he's in the ring. The vague but informative. But sometimes people will just start off and they go, you know, his friend was shot in the head next to him, falling to the ground. Blood poured. Gaping wound. He stood there, staring. Leaving his childhood best friend. This might start off a book, right? And fine. I don't know if I spelled everything right, but this might start off a book, fine. Right? His friend was shot, but we have was, right? It's just like, it's just telling us something. His friend was shot in the head next to him. We're not really connected to it though. So it's just a shocking visual. Falling to the ground, blood poured from his gaping wound, and he stood there. Oh. And Bellezza stood there staring at the light, leaving her childhood best friend. Right? Now it's just, right? But it's just words. It doesn't have deeper substance. No matter how graphic I get with this, the man's head. Okay. Chris's head, skull hanging from the wound. Like, I can just keep describing how gruesome it is, and it just doesn't matter until we are connected to the characters, until we have empathy for the characters. So I'm saying that based on this, you know, like I'm the same way though. Like, if I could be writing a zero draft and all of a sudden like the words just come out because I just understand everything about the scene and I could just write. But a lot of times, if it's just words you're writing and it's just what would look interesting or, you know, what would be shocking, you got to remember the reason we all cried when we watched The Notebook. By the way, The Notebook movie and the book are different because there is a sequel to the book, which is called The Wedding. Anyway, my point is, at the end, when Noah and Allie lay in bed and they pass away together, we all cried, okay? Unless you have no soul. All right? And we cried and we teared. But if the movie started off with two old characters and one walks in and goes, "Are you afraid?" And the other one goes, "No." And then he lays down and then they like hold each other's hands and then the nurse comes in the next day and sees them dead, no one would cry. Some people might cry. But no one's going to cry because we have this deep-seated emotional connection to these characters and their trials and tribulations. But you can use the same exact words at the end of that movie and create the same exact scene at the end of the movie and put it at the very beginning, and we will not have the same emotional empathy for it. And that's what I mean when it comes to just writing words. You have to remember it's what's coming before and what will come after. So vague but informative will help you build something like this. It's slowly building on the scene. Dave dropped to his knees, his whole chest collapsing of its air. This is not, we are not empathetically connected to Dave yet. But we're like, what is going on? And then blood dripped from his mouth. Oh my God. And the crowd roared around the ring. Oh, okay. 3, 4, the ref said. I spelled this wrong. The referee said, his voice muffled and jarred in the chaos of the ring or whatever. Or the arena. Okay, now you're like, oh, he's a boxing or he's fighting, whatever. right? Now it's just building the scene and we're like in it and it's creating the environment, and that's different. But we're not going to have an emotional connection to this right away. We don't even know who Dave is yet, all right? But the same thing with this. If it started off with this is just shock value. It's just something is happening. And that's all I'm saying. When it comes to words, don't just use words because they're the best words in the world, you know. You gotta think of something better. Yes, bloop that beard, hit that like button. You are so lovely. I didn't hear your poll choice. What did you choose? I chose the dreadful book. I don't want my book to be dreadful. That was my back in the day when I first started. There are no stupid questions, but you can ask the question. All right. Never a stupid question. That's what I love to hear. I had a quick look at the analysis phases. Are the phases done as one manuscript edit, i.e., phase 1 is a whole edit in itself, followed by phase 2 and 3? So the way you use the analysis sheet, okay, is let's say you write your whole book and you're done with your first draft. You go back to chapter 1 and use phase 1 and you go through that chapter. If that chapter passes phase 1's analysis, meaning there is enough character and there is some description, but also some exposition, that's fine. By the way, just to be clear, description is only description for description's sake, meaning it is not through the character's emotional experiences or choices. It would be if I said the microphone, the beige microphone sat on the desk, still and unmoved. That is description for description's sake. I argue that's more exposition, but if we just describe the mic was beige and tall, maybe 6 inches long or high, whatever. It sat in a thing. That's description for description's sake. If it's Thomas leaned in and pulled the beige mic closer, that is not description. That's character. Pulling the mic closer is a choice. All right, whatever. Anyway, back to this. So what you would do is you'd look at chapter 1 and you'd go through phase 1. If at the end of that chapter you go back and there's enough green or whatever color you use for character, enough character, some exposition, maybe some description, then you go, great, I can move on to phase 2. And now we're going to zoom in a little bit. Phase 2. Oh, the second thing you should be looking for before you go to phase 2 is there a clear beginning, middle, and end? So if you pass this by having emotional experience and choices, then you go, all right, you read it and you say to yourself, what am I setting up? Is there a clear conflict in this chapter? And does it resolve or present the potential for a solution? If so, in that same draft, in that same chapter, you now zoom in and you go to this. You're going to write a 3 to 5 sentence summary for each scene within that chapter, whether the chapter is all one big scene. And you're going to also write a 3 to 5 sentence summary for the characters that have narrative importance, not the bartender, not some bum on the seat. All right. And this is going to help you identify that, oh, I know what's going on here. Then you're going to look at your pacing. You're going to go through and make sure the pacing isn't overwhelming. So you're going to make sure sentences aren't overwhelmingly thick, all right, or passages or movements aren't thick, okay? Once you do that, then you're going to go to this, which is different than the original. You're looking for show, sometimes tell. You are looking for character again, but now you're looking for positions, all right? You're looking for anything that develops your character and shows their behavior. So that's what this is. Lived in world mechanics and character behavior. Who they are by what they do. All right. And is the environment present? You want to make sure in phase 2 that the environment is present. Are they in an office? If so, how important is that office to the scene? If it's not, etc., etc. And then, of course, you might want to check to make sure every sentence is doing one or more of these three things, which is plot, forward, character, or world, which is different than exposition, etc., etc. All right. And then, of course, if there are exposition blocks, I would mark it down simply for you as a writer to go, do I want to just keep this exposition here to keep the story going? Or do I want to break it up and kind of play with it a little bit? If and when you're done with all that, then you go to this, and now you're going even deeper. You're bringing the micro out, and you're going to look to see if your sentences are working through logical narrative movement, if you have the right movements, meaning each passage is doing its job and focused. You're going to play with dialogue and make sure, right? So it's just going to teach you how to kind of move through it, and then you're going to get through your filter words and make sure that it is. There's no reason to do phase 2 or 3 if phase 1 isn't doing its job. To answer your question simply, you are going to use each phase 1, 2, and 3 on each draft of a chapter, but you might not always get to phase 2 if phase 1 is not being accomplished. I really hope that answered your question. If it didn't, we could talk about it outside of. I blooped that bit. I have a question. How long is your first chapter? How long is your first chapter list? Afghani, can you reiterate that question? Are you asking how long is my first chapter list, as in like when I originally mapped out my story? Or are you asking, I don't know what you're asking. How long is your first chapter list? Are you asking how long my first chapter is? Just to clarify that, I'll be happy to answer that. You know that. So I would like to make income from my novel, but I have no audience or ad budget. Thoughts on uploading it as audiobook? The rule of thumb is if you release your book first as a hardcover and it sells and you make X amount of dollars, you then upload your soft cover or a paperback. And then if that works, then you do your audiobook. As far as which one sells more, again, no one's going to buy your book unless it is marketed correctly and advertised and you build your audience. There is a small chance people will randomly buy your book, but when you're talking about making money and income, you have to generate traffic, foot traffic. You have to create a demand and then supply that demand. If you just put your book up on audiobooks or, PDF of it on ebook for Kindle, somebody might come across it randomly, but you're going to see maybe 150 sales in a year. You know what I'm saying? If you want to tip the needle a little bit, you have to start building your audience. If you're not comfortable with being in front of a camera online or doing social media stuff, develop the ad process. Create what they're called funnels. Create funnel systems. If you don't want to ever show your face, which wouldn't make anything, you got to get out there and do interviews and stuff. The short answer is you have to let people know the book exists. I can't just be like, I made the greatest medicine in the world, and then you just put it over here and no one, like, it just, maybe somebody will buy it, maybe, but there's not enough maybes for it to be an income. If I remember correctly, the author, sci-fi, and I can't remember his name, first one to have a website, said doing that is an excellent way to generate income. Serialize it. Yes, I agree. Serialize your books if and when you can. Definitely a great way to do it. Your website is your storefront, even today. Though some people are using their Instagram or their Facebook or their YouTube as their storefront, their main sites, fine. But use it as a way to generate interest. I like having a website just as a secondary opportunity for people to walk into my store, and there they can do whatever they want. Everything from my news to what I'm working on and where I'll be. The writer was from at When Worlds Collide. Excellent. Canadian author. Fantastic advice, Cindy. Excellent advice. Yeah, I agree with the narrative movement. I try to emphasize movement in my prose. When I say logical narrative movement, I am specifically talking that each sentence directly connects to the next sentence, and then each passage, or as I call them movements, directly connect to the next movement, and then there's a logical narrative movement to it, which then creates a fast read, even when it's a slow pace. Oh, yes. Well, yeah. When Worlds Collide. Robert S. So, isn't it? Yeah. When Worlds Collide is like a masterpiece. Otherwise, it's just description for the. Yes, if it is just describing stuff. If it's like, this is a microphone and it is beige. It's just description. I'm gonna look up this Robert J. Sawyer and see how. He did pretty well. One might even say he changed the writing. He did it. He did a little bit of work. He's like six. He's old now. He's old. He did win a couple awards. He did all right for himself. If you don't know, then you don't know. But I assure you, he did what he did. Right. If you get 80 people at $5 a month, that's $400. Yeah, it definitely is. What? Well, minus taxes, minus the expense for that. Yeah, but yes. He has a Substack called Robert J. Sawyer. Yeah, he does. He said doing serialized was a cheaper way of promoting books because of someone like your book, they might buy it. Well, yeah, the other thing is if you serialize it at the end of the serialized book or whenever the book is published, because my books won't be published for the fantasy until they're all done. You have like a specialty book, and people who read the book through the series, which is something I'm going to do. I'm going to give you a specialty book. Like look at this. He basically said in the conference, lots of people think I can afford $5, but when looking at $20 for a book, they might not like what they buy. Yeah. But also they shouldn't just get the chapter. Like it's like they're watching a show each week. That's what the serialization of it. But yeah, that's how what's her face started too. Sarah J. Maas. She started with a blog, Yeah, my thought was doing a YouTube audiobook with some pictures and music effects. Yeah, again, that might not, everyone out there, listen, don't do a thing to make money. If you go, I'm going to write a book to make money, don't. If you're like, I'm going to make a widgemanop to sell to people to make money, don't. That's not how you make money. You have to make money by creating a demand. You cannot, unless I make a widgemadoo, which is a blue pen, there is a demand for blue pens. And if I create a pen, there's a greater chance people will buy the pen because there's a massive demand for pens. But your book or your songs or your movie don't have the greater demand. Even if you go, well, everyone loves romance. Romance has a greater demand, but you as an unproven author isn't a demand. No one is demanding your content. Do you know what I'm saying? They're not going to just buy that book, especially if there's no proof or evidence. So you have to build your brand and your audience to generate a demand. If that demand is 500 people, not only can you sell a book to them, let's just say 200 people buy the book, but if you make cups or shirts, or you go, hey, I'm releasing a specialty thing. This is how Brandon Sanderson sells products. He goes, I'm doing a special book. It's a foot and a half. It's 12 inches by 12 inches, and it's a hardcover, and blah, blah, blah. But they're $250 each, and I'm only selling 1,000 of them. 1,000 sell because he has a demand. People just want to consume, right? So when I had the band, when we first started, I can't be like, we have an album. No one cared. But once we started building, and people like, when are you releasing an album? When are you releasing songs? Well, we kept track of that and who was interested. And once we released some, we said, hey, right? You have to create a demand. So if the plan in the writer's brain, anyone out there, if your plan is make something, make money, bad plan. If I do X, Y will happen is not true. If you create a demand by marketing your brand and getting your expertise out there and maybe advertising, okay? Because you can make money playing the numbers game. It's will you go out on a date with me? No. Will you go out on a date with me? No. Will you go out? You're eventually going to get someone that says yes. That's how the numbers game works. So advertisement, just paying money, it's going like that. And putting it on ads and getting enough people to see that ad, and then your title work and your book cover and maybe the book blurb, like everything just works for you and it's very informative. That will lead to sales. But the moment you stop your ads, your sales will dissipate. They will vanish, right? So that's the problem with ads. But if you create a demand, people are actively searching you out. That's why Saint Anger, a clearly terrible album from Metallica, still sold millions. You know what I'm saying? That's all I'm saying. You have to copyright the audio. There is something in addition to the writing part. I've heard lots of authors finding their books on audio sites when they didn't do it and get paid. Maybe. You do not have to legally register or copyright your audiobook if you've already copyrighted the written version. Copyright has nothing to do with the medium. Copywriting, for anyone out there who doesn't know, copywriting is just writing the word, is copywriting the order of words. Meaning, if you write, she sold seashells on the seashore, and you copyright that, other people can talk about a character they could go, oh, the sea was great and filled with shells, and she sat on that shore. You can't sue them for copyright infringement. Copyright is strictly you're owning the rights of the verbiage. And if that medium is put into audio, that is fine. You don't have to copyright the audio per se. However, licensing rights would affect different mediums, but that's a whole other thing. But the performance, like let's say you did a performance of, you could copyright the performance because the performance is a thing. But if it's just a straight read, that's a whole other thing. Anyway. All right. Medias res. Yeah, when you start off right in the middle. By the way, that's this. If anyone doesn't know what that is, that's this. His friend was shot, or Dave dropped to his knees, his whole chest collapsing of his air. That's medias res. It's in the middle of something happening. By the way, it doesn't always have to be physical. It can be an emotional thing as well. It could be somebody crying or somebody coming home from work and they just lost their job. Like you could be in the middle of an emotional truth. Yes, chapter by chapter with each 3 phases. Your goal is that each chapter gets through all 3 phases. I like thick prose. That's what she said. Let's thick. Well, a thick prose is bad when it comes to pace. That's all I'm talking about. When I say thick, I'm talking about pace, and that would be considered bad for. But if it's thick, as in like the verbiage, that's different. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm specifically talking about pace. Pace is the speed at which information is presented to the reader. So PWA says my pace is non-existent. So I am looking forward to trying your method. Fantastic. Pace is not. I mean, the drafts you got to do an edit on. Oh, What? Let's go back to, let's see. I have a question. How long is your first chapter list? Yeah. It's pretty long. As far as chapters go, I probably have maybe one or two. I got a couple of outlines that I have to kind of like potentially schedule in. I think there's another. I don't count the scenes. Sometimes people send me scenes, just a short scene. If you want to send me something, send me something. Are you on Kindle only? Yeah. You can use Substack. Substack is great. I use it for essays. You're giving away all the secrets from our recording. What? Yeah, but if they go to our recording, they get to see your face. Bros speaking facts. Hells yeah. Is there anything you don't have next to you? I mean, not only do I have tissues, but I have tissue. Got a deck of cards. I got a deck of cards. I got lots of things. What else? What else do I got? Let's see. Got a passport. I got it all. It's my office. Everything I have is in my office. Let's see. I got chips. I got gambling chips. I got this for blackjack. I got blackjack. I got a guitar capo. Which means I also have a pick. I got a pick. Okay. I got a brush. I got blackjack. Oh yeah, let's do it. I love blackjack. I do like a blackjack. Do you have a magic 8-ball? Mine says it is decidedly so. I don't own a 8-ball anymore, unfortunately. I wish I did though. I named the character Blackjack because I love blackjack. You can't go wrong with blackjack. That's all I'm saying. I love a blackjack. Sounds like poker night. No one wants to play poker with me because I win. Stupid. Where's the kitchen? It's coming. I got it. Look, I even got a little notepaddy things. I got this for my soda. I don't have good soda. What else do I got? Got a top hat. Just say. How's it 2 hours in already? All right. If no one has any more questions, I guess I'll take that off the board. Oh, I think that's about it. All right. 2 hours. I'll see you tomorrow. Tomorrow is going to be write a book with me from concept to conception, as always. It's gonna be fun. We're gonna be writing the sci-fi. We're gonna be getting into it. We're going to get into it. Yeah. Who knew? Is all I'm saying. All right, everyone. Have a great night. Thank you so much. Hasta luego. As always, I'm Thomas J. Bellezza, and keep developing the right mindset. Bye, arrivederci. Ciao. Yeah.